Most people know that radar SAMs have floors, lower limits you can sneak in under. Not everyone knows this applies to heat-seeking SAMs like manpads as well in DCS. Yeah, they never saw me coming. Boop. So, early access damage modeling. No, I'm kidding. I'm set to immortal, but I bet some of you took the expression flying tank or IV literally. Now I've shown in a similar setup in my Black Shark sniping vid, but recently I got into a conversation with someone saying that they were fired on from down low above a hilltop, leading me to think maybe the code has changed these last years. So I tested it. Down there is a whole bunch of angry. All the Russian and US template SAMs, so it's SA2, 3, 6, 10, 11, Patriot and the SAMs, thrown all the manpads and stingers, Roland, Hawk, SA-15 Tor, all of them in the right groups, with their tracking radars, all of them facing correctly, and placed in a pretty open landscape with plenty of time to have line of sight on me and build up tracks, and also definitely within range and angular constraints. And now engage cloak, just dropping beneath their floor. So somewhere under 10 meters or 30 feet above ground level, I can fly right in and the IR and radar guided SAMs don't launch on me. And SAMs right in the air have a very hard time tracking. In this instance, I forgot that SAM Avengers can shoot some guns, so I had to take that one out. But now I'm pretty much, none of these things touch me. I can fly right through here with a Huey and have door gunners take over everything that isn't a heavily armored SAM. So, extended tests. Bunch of nasty SAMs on the hill crest down there. And I'm literally cresting the highest peak of Mount Elbrus. They launch, even though it's a fairly slim margin for them to see me over this mountain crest above. Missile is tracking well, but once I get low enough above ground, staying in line of sight, the missile goes dumb and the SAMs stop firing. I can even slalom down this mountain peak, sort of barely containing my airspeed and descent rate in RPMs. But as long as I'm low enough above ground, the SAMs ignore me, even in plain sight, even though I'm a very dark, contrasting helicopter in front of this white snow. Now, this seems to apply to altitude above ground level only, just the terra firma. Buildings don't seem to count, so these igloos are ignoring me. Once I get high enough, pow. Lower down again, you see them turn away. Now I barely scrape over this rooftop and they rain all hell down on me. Even parked on top of a rooftop, they shoot at me as soon as I spawn in. So altitude above dirt, or rather the terrain only, so whether that's a mountain or a water surface, doesn't matter, just the terrain. That means if you have to bound up higher to get over trees or a building, you're putting yourself at risk. At least in terms of the ground clutter. If you're still masked from threats and out of range, then great. Now the caveats. This is only for the infrared and radar guided SAMs. Any AAA and flak conventional cannons or tow missiles will fire at you regardless of your altitude. And of course some SAMs have guns as well, like SAM Avengers and Tunguskas. And they also won't work against jets. They seem to shoot at you regardless, though the missiles might have a harder time tracking you if you're low. Eventually your luck might run out and it might hit or airburst near enough. Now as I have it, the Tunguska and Rapier systems have optical tracking as well. Though me cruising in this low, they ignore me till at the 4K limit. The Tunguska starts laying down that 5,000 rounds per minute hate, though it still doesn't fire the missiles, leaving me with a gunfight I can dodge through if I've got the space, level terrain and no other concerns. I think you could even take a Huey or a Hip and kill it with rockets if you keep dodging. Just need to get in a bit closer, of course. Then again, in a shark, I can apparently just outrange it with AP rounds. The rapier system only started reacting to me when I ascended. Now, I've tested this versus the AI, not against players. I can't confirm if this works in blinding player-controlled SAMs or jets, though I'd imagine the ground clutter should slap some effect in making a lock harder to achieve. Now, my guideline of beneath 10 meters or 30 foot above ground level, I've heard or seen of launches at 6 meters or 18 feet. And of course, different radar SAMs have different floors, usually higher. You can check out a database like Hoggett's SAM guide for those, or from DCS's main menu, go Encyclopedia, and you can click on some of the SAMs and see their altitude minimums. Just note some of them are also in this category over here. Now, I also say 10 meters or 30 foot-ish, as I'm not perfectly sure if it's calculating that limit from your in-cockpit registered radar altimeter, which might be on your tail, might be a little higher up, or if it's from the center of your 3D mesh or your pilot head. So use it as a guideline rather than an absolute limit and safety barrier. Would this work in real life? Probably situationally, yes. I mean, over the decades, the floor limits for some of the advanced systems have apparently gotten lower and lower. And there's also more early warning things happening these days, like a seeming non-combatant with a cell phone giving away your position, or satellites, or maybe even CCTV. And of course, things like manpads now have multiple ways of tracking, not just the infrared. Yeah, so there's a few more things that can track or get out of ground clutter if that was a problem before. So situationally, probably still works, but probably not blanket across the board like in DCS, and definitely not with heat-seeking things if it's not an angular limit. That's my very layman's guess. Either way, this is how it works in DCS right now, and it works. Now, one more thing. I was intentionally showing nice open areas so I could show how it was the altitude, cancelling them out, not line of sight or other things, which do also help. You might not always have such nice uncluttered terrain to spot things in, or approach by. Forests and towns are going to be nightmare fuel detecting and approaching SAMs while remaining low. Unless you've already got a dialed-in position, know exactly. And it's compounded by advanced units like BTRs hiding along your approach path, waiting to gun you down as you get in closer and suddenly get exposed to a new angle. So figuring out your approach so you can stay low from the SAMs, and ideally also masked, but at the same time also masked from their other shorter range defenders, while getting angles to systematically take out these defenses or avoid them, it's going to be tricky. We're going to have to figure out that puzzle based on the situation. Ideally have a few more wingmen around to cover other angles, spot launches, warn you of all that kind of stuff. Take it patiently if you had to deal with SAMs and disabling or getting around them. This is Volk. Stay safe.